Hello, and welcome to episode 79 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
And we have some big news.
Do we?
Well, Sam does.
Do I?
Yes, you do. I have to edit this out.
Why? I think it's funny.
Yeah, Sam has some big news. I don't know why she's acting like she doesn't know what I'm talking about. Tell us about your big news.
I was just doing it for humor value.
Oh, it was for humor value.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Tell me about your big news.
Oh, well, I'm very excited to announce that with the help of my lovely wife, Christine, I have recently opened an Etsy store that is called Cucumber Craftworks.
Yay!
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah. So slowly but surely, I am getting my inventory of scarves and jewelry and other kind of home and garden decor type items up on the Etsy site.
That's really cool. And
Yeah.
if people want to find your Etsy site, do you know how they find it?
Well, you can go to www.etsy.com/cucumbercraftworks.
Oh. I'll also have a link in the show notes.
And Christine will put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make it easy, you don't
To
have
make it easy for you.
No wwws will be
Yeah.
will have to be typed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, go on out there and check it out if you are so inclined, and, no pressure to buy anything, but if you could go and follow the store, that would be super cool.
Yeah, follow Sam's Etsy store, and if you're looking for any knitwear, scarves, and she's also got some jewelry up there.
Yep.
And what else do you have up there?
Right now, it's mostly scarves and gemstone bracelets, and I have my lampwork beaded fairy wands.
Oh, right. Yes. The
Yes.
fairy garden
Yes.
stakes.
Fairy garden stakes,
Yeah.
yes. And so, but I'm also working on a whole bunch of other things that will be coming out over time. Other knitted accessories, headbands, scrunchies, cell phone bags, hats as we get closer to winter. So yeah, it'll be a constantly rotating kind of thing.
Yeah. So check that out.
Yeah. So that's our exciting news.
That is our exciting news. I don't know why Sam was acting like she didn't know what I was talking about.
Wasn't. You couldn't tell from my face that I knew exactly what you were talking about, and I was just kind of trying to get your goat.
You got my goat.
Good.
Goat gotten.
Excellent.
Yes. Moving on. I have on the show notes, cornbread is yummy. I don't know why I put that.
This is true.
I don't know why I put that on
Well,
there.
the thing is, I think you put it on there because you made some lovely cornbread.
I did, and it must have been the day I wrote these show notes.
It must have been. Yeah. So you made some lovely cornbread to go alongside your sweet potato and 3-bean chili.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, and it was fantastic. Now, I'm not a big cornbread fan. Most of the cornbreads I've ever tried have been a little too dry and a little too corny for my taste.
Yeah.
But this cornbread that Christine made, I don't know if it's her own recipe or if it's somebody else's recipe.
It's mine. It's a riff on somebody else's recipe, but what I do to make it more palatable for people who don't really like the coarse cornmeal dry texture of some cornbread recipes is I substitute some of the cornmeal for corn flour.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it makes
in
it
the
more
texture.
cakey.
Almost cakey.
Yeah.
Like kind of smooth and just delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I put a little bit of vegan cheddar on top and let it melt on top. It was pretty good.
It was.
Yeah.
I would say the bread didn't need the vegan cheddar on top.
It was just for fun.
It was for fun, but for me, that wasn't a make or break, and I would have
No.
been fine with the cornbread without the cheese.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, but the cornbread itself was delightful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for making it.
I guess that's why I put that on there. Cornbread is yummy.
I'm assuming that's the only reason that you put it on there because, otherwise it's just a really generic statement to make.
Right. Yeah. What else? Oh, Sam has been on spring break, and today is the official last day
It is.
of spring break. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, because here we are recording on a Sunday instead of a Monday because we have a meeting tomorrow evening that is going to be taking up our time. So we are podcasting early this week. So yes, this is the final afternoon of spring break, which is kind of a bummer. Not that I don't enjoy my job. I certainly do. I'm looking forward to getting back to the students and back to doing what I do. But at the same time, it's really nice having time to stay at home and knit and read and get an Etsy store going.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it went really quickly.
It did. Well, breaks always do.
Yeah.
You know, even the next one, which is a much longer break, will go quickly.
Yeah.
As it always does. But it's okay. We just look forward to it, you know.
Yeah.
Count down the 7 weeks until the next one.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on. Let's see, we've talked about cornbread. We've talked about break being over.
We have.
I wanted to give you a little update on the Miyoko's situation. She and her attorney, Lisa Bloom, recently did a Instagram live where they talked about the countersuit that Miyokos is bringing against her own company, which is heartbreaking for her, I'm sure. I actually saw she posted something on Instagram yesterday where she was saying how completely heartbroken she is. That,
how could she not be?
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
that it's come to this, and you know she's got a little bit of PTSD going over the whole situation.
That's not surprising.
But I reached out to Lisa Bloom, Miyoko's attorney, and asked if it would be okay with her if I shared some audio from that Instagram live, and she said, "Yes, please be my guest, and thank you for your support," she said.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And look at you getting in touch with important people.
Yeah, I don't know, but I slid into her DMs on Instagram, and
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Go you.
She got back to me, which was nice of her.
Very nice.
So I thought I would play. I did edit this down and may edit it down a little further, which you won't know on the other end of it.
Right.
It was, I think, originally about 25 minutes.
Okay.
And I edited it down to, I think, close to 20 minutes.
Okay.
I may edit it further. So let's just listen to that, and we'll catch up with you on the other side of it.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lisa Bloom, and I have a really interesting Instagram live for you right now. We're going to be joined by my client, who is a really fierce and badass woman named Miyoko Shinner. A lot has been happening. You may have heard that most of you probably know Miyoko's Creamery. It's a brand of vegan cheeses that I've been a huge fan of for many years as a longtime vegan. And Miyoko is the woman who founded the company, who started the company, who grew the company from 2014 to the present. I represent Miyoko in some litigation that's going on right now, which I find really shocking and offensive. She was driven out of the company that bears her name, Miyoko's Creamery. She's the Miyoko. Let's be very clear about that. She's the one that came up with all of the ideas, the recipes, grew the company, took it to where it is today, which is in a lot of locations. You see it at Whole Foods, you see it at Target, you see it all over the place. And that's because of Miyoko and other people who worked at the company as well. But she is the founder. She is the driving force behind all of it. And now she's out, except as a board member and as a shareholder. So I really wanted you all to hear from her and to hear her story. A lot of people have been asking me about her. So Miyoko, I have long been a fan of you. I'm very proud to represent you now. Tell us about your background.
I'd gotten to a point in my life, I was over 50, and I thought, like, what the hell am I going to live the rest of my life without cheese? And so I started experimenting. In the early 2000s, I was in the kitchen frequently, experimenting with different plant milks. And, you know, the idea really started with tofu. The whole idea is that tofu is made very much in a similar way to making dairy cheese, except it's not fermented. And I felt like, why isn't this possible? Why is it only possible with dairy milk? And I didn't really understand the science behind it, but because of that, it led me to experimenting because I was, you know, free from fear. So that was the beginning, and it culminated in publishing a book called Artisan Vegan Cheese, which is often considered by many to be the first treatise written on the subject of actually fermenting plants with lactic acid bacteria to transform their flavors to something really, really cheesy. So anyway, so I wrote the book it was published in 2012, and I really had no intention of starting a company. I mean, I really just wanted to open source things. I started a blog, I had a website, I was teaching a lot of cooking classes. I just really wanted to share.
But you were basically giving this out, like, hey, world,
I'm just going to give it to you.
Giving this to you.
Yeah, here's how to make vegan cheese. Here's how to cook vegan. You know, here are my recipes. I did teach classes. I also gave out recipes for free. I just wanted people to embrace the vegan lifestyle and realize that it wasn't just granola and lentil. So that was really my goal. But I had enough people saying to me, you know, it's just too much trouble. I really don't want to make cheese. It's complicated. Can't you just start another company? And I really, really didn't want to. But there was all this talk, and people were saying things like, you can reach more people if you actually sold products and you became successful. And I sort of bought into this idea that market-based solutions were the way to go. And so I felt like, okay, I'm going to give it one last hurrah. At the age of 57, I started Miyoko's Creamery.
Amazing. And good for you. And I'm so glad you did. And, I knew about Miyokos immediately. Some people in the vegan food world told me about it. And I used to go online and order it from the website, and I had to wait forever. And 2 out of the 3 products I ordered were not available because it was a little company and you guys were doing your best. And I didn't care because it was so freaking good. I had to have that cheese. It was like, give it to me. And so I ordered as much as I could. And then I started seeing it in stores, and I was so excited to watch the company grow and develop. And everything that you were doing was always such an important part of that, and your activism and standing up for animals. The company, so it was 2014 that you basically started the company, and then it grew and grew and grew over the years till 2022 when they fired you, and we'll get to that in a minute. Tell me about that, because it's huge exponential growth of this company. It's like a company that's been around for 20 years. It's only been around since 2014.
That was wonderful.
What was that period like?
We have, of course, as all companies, our trials and tribulations trying to figure out how to grow a brand, especially in a nascent category that didn't exist before. Because you're going out to the public with products that they've never seen before and showing them that they should buy it. And so you're really growing a category. You're not just selling a product. But also we were growing our mission. We used the platform to talk about animals, to talk about their sentience. And I never shied away from activism. I always used the word vegan. I didn't use the word plant-based. I debated about it frequently. I was a frequent speaker on the speaking circuit about animal rights as well as in the industry itself. And I think the team was really passionate. We had a lot of vegans work at the company. Not everyone, but a lot of vegans. And a lot of people were there because they believed in the mission. And we were all working towards something that we believed in. I had so much fun. I mean, some of the people that aren't there anymore that were with me at the time that really helped me build the brand, that really helped just ideate on presentation, how to communicate, everything from packaging, all of that. We had a lot of fun. We stumbled a lot. We made a lot of mistakes, but I would say we were growing consistently every single year. We were growing, 50, 60, 70, 100, 160% a year over year, depending on the year. And even during the pandemic, we were running out of money. We had to put off fundraising a year. We stretched out cash a year. And we had a passionate team that just hung in there during the pandemic. And we still grew, double digits that year, 60% or so that year.
And, Miyoko, I can tell you are a true founder and entrepreneur because you say, well, of course we stumbled, but, we just kept going. And that's truly what an entrepreneur does. There's always going to be struggles and hurdles and challenges and mistakes and failures. And you just have to keep going. And the greatest entrepreneurs are the ones who just say, okay, well, we're just going to figure it out. We're going to keep going. We're going to problem solve. Right? That's what you have to do when you have a business. So you got to, let's scoot ahead to 2022. That's just last year. And here you are, the founder of the company, the namesake of the company, and you started to be some problems, and that led to you doing an HR complaint. So just because this is in litigation, I'm going to ask you just to speak in general terms, but what
Let's just say that certain members of the team had changed, and I began to experience something that at the time I didn't want to call discrimination because I hadn't actually experienced it to this degree. But I began to get a lot of pushback for things that I wanted to do or ideas that I had, being told that I didn't know what I was talking about, or, the idea was just not solid. I am an explorer of ideas. I'm somebody who is constantly finding new ways to do things. But I never really had this kind of pushback before. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the problem. And then I began to have other female employees come into my office saying that they were experiencing huge amount of pushback, actions that they were trying to take that were being thwarted, women extremely frustrated, being yelled at, crying in my office. And I realized then I wasn't crazy. At first, I thought maybe I'm crazy. I had begun to tell. That's what we do.
That's what we
think
women
it's our
always
fault.
think. It must be us.
Right.
It must be our fault. We must be crazy, even though misogyny and sexism are everywhere.
Yes.
But when it happens to
and
us,
so I didn't say anything initially, and then I started to speak up about it to the board and to another executive at the company. In fact, he and I had long talks about this, and I started getting. I did get his support. He's not at the company anymore, but I felt like I was being ignored by the people to whom I was explaining this, and it got so bad eventually that I went into the HR office because I was really trying to resolve it in a cordial fashion. I didn't want to go in and file a formal complaint because I guess there was still a part of me that was feeling like, it was really when the women started coming in, I felt like, okay, I got to speak up for them. But when it was just me, I was like, maybe it's just all in my imagination because I'm just a crazy lady. And that's how, Yeah.
And let me just echo that too, because I've seen this in so many of my cases for women over the years that we put up a lot when it happens to us. But when we see it happening to other women, that's when we decide we're going to stand up and we're going to speak out on behalf of other women. I see it in sexual harassment cases, gender discrimination cases. Despite the popular belief that like women are divided and we're catfighting or something, actually women will very often stand up for other women. And so that's what you did, and God bless you. So you did an HR complaint. And after that, you got demoted, and then you got fired from your own company that bears your name. I mean, how shocking and hurtful was that to you?
Well, at the time that I was demoted, I was told not to tell anyone. They wanted to make an announcement right away to the company, and I felt I didn't want to accept it. I mean, this was. Of course, I couldn't sleep. I just going back, I can't even speak straight going back to that time because it was so painful. It's like, imagine if you're a mom and someone comes to you, human services comes to you and Social Security, whatever department comes and takes your baby away and says, you're not qualified to be a mom. We're taking your baby away. And imagine, this wasn't a human being, I realized, but it was to me, it was like my baby. And so it was my baby and it was my life. I mean, I lived and breathed it. I stopped having a social life because all I ever thought about was the business, to be honest. Yeah. And of course I couldn't tell anybody because, I was told I was still I was still on the board and they wanted to find a different kind of role for me. And so the thing about women is that when this sort of thing happens, and believe me, I'll tell you a little bit more. I've had a lot of women share their stories with me in the last few weeks, is that when we are vocal about something like this, we're afraid that we're going to be casting shame upon ourselves. We don't want the world to think that we're failures. I mean, and we just don't have the chutzpah, I think, that a lot of men have. At least most of us don't. And especially women tend to doubt themselves more. Women, that's why there's that little inflection in their voice at the end of a sentence. They can't just come down with a phone. We apologize for apologize. That's right. We're always questioning ourselves. Right. And so there's already a part of us that feels we're imposters. And there's a word for that, imposter syndrome. So we're all suffering from that. And when something like this happens, you really do feel like, oh my God, I guess I was just a fake. I guess I really wasn't up to snuff or whatever. We blame ourselves. We don't look out and say, wow, why did you guys do this? What was wrong with you? Why did you do this right after I did that? Is this, you just don't think that way because this is the way women are raised. And this is something that we have to really start to to learn about in ourselves and overcome.
Let me jump in as your attorney, and I'm very happy and honored to be your attorney and let everybody know that retaliation for complaining about gender discrimination is completely illegal. Here in California, where our case is going to be happening, and all over the country, but you have every right in your workplace to complain about gender discrimination, race discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination, whatever it is, any kind of discrimination or harassment. You have the right to be a whistleblower and complain about illegal activity. And the company cannot retaliate against you. They cannot demote you for doing that. They cannot terminate you for doing that. That is called retaliation, and it's illegal. And so we are bringing our own affirmative claims against the company very soon for gender discrimination, retaliation, and unauthorized use of your name and likeness. And Miyoko, it's really shocking to me that the company does not have the right to use your name and to use your likeness. They know this. Your attorneys put them on notice. They don't have the right. They never purchased the right to do that, right? Your name and likeness, meaning your picture. And yet they're still doing it to this day.
Well,
right?
I don't know. We sent 2 cease and desist letters. This was my original attorney who specializes in intellectual property law. And we asked them to remove my name, my face off a food truck that was going to go on tour. I believe I'm still on the website. I know they're changing the website. I believe I was also still listed as CEO until a couple of weeks ago on the website.
So there's this weird, trying to silence you on the one hand, and you just be quiet, Miyoko. Just sit down and be quiet and do as you're told. And yet on their end, they're just doing
it kind of seems that way, yes. So I know that, we were trying to negotiate a different kind of rule for me, which had a lot to do with the name and image license. I felt very, very strongly that I only want my name and image associated with the company in a certain way to guarantee that there'd be a certain integrity to the way it was used in terms of the products that it would be used with, et cetera. So there's a lot I don't want to go too much into that right now, but to me, that's all I have.
No, I think that's great.
And so I have to protect that at all times.
And you have every right to it, just as we all do. I think that's really important. So the company not only didn't really investigate your gender discrimination complaint, as far as we can tell, but then demoted you and then fired you and then sued you a couple of weeks ago. And what they perhaps forgot somehow is that you are still chair of the board. And what the lawsuit basically alleges is that you downloaded some documents. But as I can tell you, as a California lawyer, board members have a right to look at documents that pertain to the company. You downloaded them, you looked at them, you had every right to do that. So that's basically their case against you. They started this war. They started this lawsuit. I'm sure you never wanted to be in it, but you have found the courage to stand up, to retain me, to fight back, to raise your gender discrimination and retaliation claims and your claim about the unauthorized use of your name and likeness. And we are doing that. We are standing up and we are fighting back on your behalf. You have somehow found the courage. And this is what I want you to tell people, Miyoko, because there are so many people out there who are afraid, who experience something like what you experienced, and they just are terrified. Where do you find the courage? Where do you find the energy to stand up and fight back?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that when they first filed that lawsuit, I was absolutely crushed. I mean, it was like the Game of Thrones scene with Cersei Lannister is walked down naked, the stairs of shame or whatever. And I felt like the entire world is now looking at me and judging me and thinking that I'm this horrible person. But instead, there was this outpouring of love from the community. It was just incredible all over social media, the amount of support, the people that showed up, the emails that I got, the messages. I mean, I can't even keep up with it. So if you sent me a message somewhere and I haven't responded, I so apologize because I've had such an outpouring. I've tried to respond to as many as possible. Not all the comments because I can't, but just anyway, so that gave me a lot of strength. So thank you so much to all my fans out there, and all the vegans and change makers out there, the women that are out there to do something good for the world. But the other place that I really found my strength is after this happened, I started getting a lot of phone calls and emails from other women founders who had experienced similar things, had been kicked to the curb without severance, without anything. I heard about sexual harassment in the venture capital world. I heard about a lot of that. I started hearing these horrible stories. People started calling me and saying, oh my God, I just got fired from my own company. And I realized that my story was not unique, except that I have a big platform and that I'm a very public face, whereas these other women were not. And they're all scared into being silent. And I realized, okay, if they have to be silent, then I'm going to give them a voice. And so for me, this isn't just a fight for me. Yes, I want justice, but at the same time, I want justice for all these women. I want to give support to all these women who have been silenced, who have been kicked out of their companies. This is something that I want investors to understand. Investors need vehicles to park their money, to grow their money. If there were no founders with ideas, if there were no visionaries with a mission and a strategy, there would be no vehicle for investors to make money off of. So treat your founders well, even if they're not. And this is something that is not respected. Investors typically think that they can just, they take a founder, let the founder grow a company to a certain point so that it's now an established brand. And then they bring in all of their experts and say, we'll take it from here because we know what we're doing. And when they do that, they strip the company of soul. They strip the company of its original mission. It's the heart of the company. And oftentimes these founders are not treated well. I mean, I've not heard of a single female founder. They're all female founders. I don't know about the guys. They're not calling me. Well, one guy called me. One black founder called me who's having problems as well, too. But generally speaking, the female founders or people of color are not being given, these golden parachutes. They're usually just told, well, it's time for you to move on. Maybe here's 2 months pay. Something like that. I heard her founder, she was given 1 month severance. 1 month severance.
Oh, it's unbelievable. That's right. You just get swept off the stage like you're yesterday's garbage. So listen, Miyoko, I think you are an inspiration to me. I've been watching the comments. Everybody is talking about how much they love you, how they support you, how they're outraged about what happened to you. I want to let everybody know we really appreciate the support. I've been very pleasantly surprised in this case. I've been doing civil rights cases for 36 years. And what's really different about this case is, number one, Miyoko is a total badass and she's brave and strong and she's standing up and she's not going away. And number two is just the wave of love and support that the community has for her. And I want everybody to know that that support means the world to us, because being publicly shamed is horrible, no matter who you are, no matter how fierce and tough you are. It's that Cersei Lannister feeling. We all do care on some level about what people say about us. I've experienced public shaming. Miyoko has experienced it. It's awful. And the antidote is the love that you all are pouring out for Miyoko. So we appreciate that. We're going to keep you posted on what's going on, because Miyoko is not silenced. She doesn't need to be silenced. She doesn't want to be silenced, and she's not silenced. So she has the courage to speak out and let everybody know. And I think that it's really important to shine a light on what's going on here. I've represented a lot of other female founders with similar cases, and it's just wrong. It's not going to happen. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to rest until we get justice. Miyoko,
I just want to let people know that I just joined just now, that one of the reasons I chose Lisa and I called her up, I actually DM'd her on Instagram, was because I learned she was vegan. And I'm like, oh my God, Lisa Bloom is vegan. There we go. And I DM'd you and you got back to me right away. I couldn't believe it. So I'm so grateful that we're in this together, that you are representing me, because we do have to, I just want to think of this not as just my case, but this is hopefully maybe a precedent that will be set for other female founders. I want to change how investments are done in this country, because everybody needs capital, but there's so much exploitation of founders that's going on right now. We need to rewrite the rules. So that's my next. I'm thinking about how we can do that. How do we create a more equitable system where founders can remain instrumental and respected, and investors can also still make money? I mean, we need to create a system that works for everybody. And we also need to create more opportunities for women and people of color to obtain capital, because that's also an area where we see huge disparity. Only fewer than 2% of female founders get capital. I mean, it's just horrendous. There's so much disparity all around from the very, very get-go. And I do want to say one more thing. Oftentimes the investors, people on the board, other male executives, feel they are quote unquote woke. They don't feel that they have any sort of bias whatsoever. And when a female founder speaks up, especially an Asian female founder who's supposed to be docile and speak with a certain tone of voice, when a female founder speaks up and owns herself, the men in the room oftentimes don't only push back, they're offended. They find offense. There is something wrong in the delivery of the woman. That's what they find. And they are entitled to be offended. Yes.
Live up to the stereotype.
So these are all the things that I want to be able to talk about in the future and be able to combat and change systematically. We have to make systematic change. So that's what I'm devoting myself to right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Miyoko. You're a huge inspiration. I'm so proud to fight for you. We're not going to rest until we get justice. You are an inspiration to many, many people, whether it's women of color, women founders, entrepreneurs, vegans, feminists. There's a lot of different categories, and you inspire all of us, and we're going to get you there. So thanks for joining me today. Thanks for speaking out. Thanks, everybody, for your support.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was just a portion of their Instagram Live, and I do apologize for the audio. It is just them on Instagram Live speaking through their laptops to each other, so there's a little bit of an audio issue every now and again, but
that'll happen.
Yeah. Well, what did you think about that?
Well, I thought it was interesting, getting a little bit more perspective on what exactly, well, not exactly, obviously, but the kind of chain of events that took place. For example, as I think we've mentioned before, we were sitting in the same room with Miyoko at the Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit back in October, and some of this had already happened.
Right.
The demotion had already happened, but she was not allowed to talk about it, and so none of us were any the wiser. So getting a little bit more perspective there on kind of the timeline and the sequence of events, I think was really interesting. And I think Miyoko makes an excellent point about discrimination in the workplace, and discrimination against women, against people of color, against the LGBTQIA community, you name it, for any reason, that we're not often encouraged to speak up. And so I definitely applaud her for that. And I do hope that this case works towards changing the rules.
Yeah.
And changing how founders and supporters of businesses are treated.
Yeah,
for sure.
I totally agree. I do appreciate Miyoko's having this takes a lot of chutzpah to come out and talk about it like this. For sure. And I really do appreciate her wanting to set a precedence and change the system and change the way founders, especially founders that are women and people of color, are treated.
Yeah.
By people who invest in their companies.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, like she said, this is not something, it's not something new. It's happening to a lot of people.
No, it's not new and it's not unique.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, as she said, she has a bigger platform. She has a higher profile.
Right.
Than most of the people that this happens to on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so as much hurt and chaos as I'm sure this has caused her, in a way, maybe we should be a little bit grateful that there's a platform now, that she will use this platform for all it's worth.
Yeah.
and do what she can to affect positive change.
Yeah, and I hope that this works out for her, and I would hope that the people who are like running Miyoko's Creamery right now would see that it's in the best interest of everybody involved to settle this with her, to reinstate her, and because all they're doing is hurting their bottom line.
Oh well, that's
at
absolutely true. Yeah. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, so we'll keep you posted on that as it develops. And we support Miyoko in what she's doing, and I hope that she can make change. And if she can't make change, I hope at least that she gets some satisfaction,
Yes,
through this lawsuit.
At the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're behind you, Miyoko.
100%. As the kids say.
I've still not heard a kid say that. I think you're the kid you're referring to.
Maybe. You have anything else to say about the Miyoko situation?
I don't. Just that, I wish her all the best, and we'll be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are watching what's going on with this. So
for sure.
Thanks for listening to that. I hope it wasn't too painful with the way the audio was. Moving on, we have a recipe this week.
Yeah, we do.
So let's talk about that.
So here is our Vegan Cookbook Challenge recipe of the week.
So this week, I made a recipe out of the Clean Vegan Cookbook by Jackie Akerberg. Jackie Akerberg is the creator of Jackfruitful Kitchen. She has a blog online, and she also has a pretty cool Instagram. You can see what she does there. Jackie's recipes have been featured in the Complete Guide to Plant-Based Food and DSM Magazine, as well as Good Old Vegan and Vegan Bowls. She lives in Des Moines, Iowa with her husband. And this week I made, actually just today.
If I'm not mistaken, you made the cover recipe.
I did indeed make the cover recipe.
I thought that looked familiar.
Which is always fun. Did it look like?
It looked very much like that.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed it did.
And the recipe I made, we won't keep you in suspense any longer, was the best ever veggie burger.
Now, I got to say, that's a tough claim to make.
Yeah.
Best veggie burger ever. Because, just who has eaten every veggie burger that exists? I know I haven't.
No, I haven't either. I do love a good veggie burger.
I do too.
And it's hard to make a really good veggie burger, and I think that this is definitely the best veggie burger I've ever made.
If we're talking about a from scratch fresh veggie burger, this was outstanding.
It was really super flavorful.
Which is the hard part, I think, with veggie burgers, is getting a lot of flavor into the burger patty itself.
And the consistency was great.
Oh, it was fantastic.
It was a patty. It didn't crumble when you bought into it.
Did you buy into it?
I did buy into it. It didn't crumble when you bit into it, and it didn't fall apart.
No, it was perfect.
Yeah, it was really great, and not a difficult recipe.
Nice.
No,
it took some time.
Well, I was taking my time because one of the components is a quick pickled onion. Quick.
In air quotes.
Quick, at least a couple of hours.
Okay.
So while the pickles were the onions were pickling, I slowly kind of prepped all the other things.
Right.
Now, if I had made the pickled, why do I keep saying pickles?
If you had made the pickled onions.
Right. If I had made the pickled onions yesterday,
then it would have been much faster.
It would have been faster because then I could just go,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pickled onions were really good and different. A different pickling liquid called for orange juice and lime juice and lemon juice and, of course, vinegar.
Yeah, but
some apple cider vinegar.
Really bright, really lovely. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, they were very good. And then the veggie burger itself, the base is chickpea. Mm-hmm. And then, of course...
Again, one single chickpea.
Yes, one chickpea.
Okay. Sliced
very, very thinly. No. So, no, it's a chickpea base. And then, of course, you add in some onion, some carrots. Oh, and mushrooms, yes. It calls for cremini mushrooms, but I could not find cremini mushrooms. So I used baby portobello mushrooms, and that seemed to work out okay.
Yeah, It's beautiful.
Yeah, because you just chop them pretty small.
Right.
I figured, what's the difference?
There you go.
And Sam doesn't like mushrooms, and she loved the burger.
Well, allow me to clarify. I have had a long history of not liking mushrooms. Mm-hmm. I think it's because I must have had a mushroom when I was young, and it was probably like out of a can and slimy and gross.
Right. Most people that say they don't like mushrooms or have an aversion to mushrooms, it's because of a textural thing. And I think we've talked about this in other episodes.
Yeah, I have no trouble with the flavor of mushrooms. I occasionally have trouble with the texture of mushrooms.
Yeah.
But with them being chopped up like this, I mean, you've been making more and more things with mushrooms since we went vegan.
Yeah,
and
I sneak them in.
had a complaint about any of them.
Not once. Mm-mm. These are also really super healthy, okay? There's no oil. Other than some avocado that I put on top of the burger. And there's like flax seeds and rolled oats and all kinds of really great things in this.
Which is why it's in the Clean Vegan Cookbook.
Yeah. Explains the Clean Vegan in the Clean Vegan Cookbook. But super healthy and really super flavorful. And then she also, with the burger, there is a recipe for her burger sauce. Mm-hmm. Which was delicious.
It's also delicious, yes.
Yep, it's vegan yogurt based, and it's like spicy and creamy and really good.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was a great burger.
Yeah,
it really was.
And we have some leftover burgers, of course.
Oh, yay!
So we can have them again.
Cool.
Yeah,
rock on.
Yeah. So that was this week's recipe. And if you're interested in the book, there'll definitely be a link in the show notes to it. Again, the book was The Clean Vegan Cookbook by Jackie Akerberg.
Awesome.
Want to move on to our noteworthy section?
Why, sure. So in our noteworthy section this week, we have a little bit of an update on the EWG science team's Shopper's Guide to Pesticides in Produce. Okay, so they've updated the Shopper's Guide, meaning the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 for 2023. And so we thought we would give you a start on what those updates are. So 46 items were analyzed by the EWG team, and the 12 fruits and vegetables that were most contaminated with pesticides, and we're going to start from number 12 and work our way up. Okay. Are green beans, blueberries, cherries, bell and hot peppers.
Yeah.
That's a bummer right there.
That is a bummer.
Yeah.
Because they're expensive.
Mm-hmm. I'm bummed by the blueberries myself because I do love blueberries. Grapes, apples, nectarines, pears, peaches, kale, collard, and mustard greens. Bummer that because I love me some kale. Mm-hmm. Number 2, spinach.
Right.
Which again, bummer because I love spinach.
Right.
And the number 1 most pesticide-infused produce are strawberries.
Yeah, and I don't think that's new. I think strawberries have been number one.
they've been at the top of the list for a while, I think.
Yeah, I think new to the list for me at least is green beans.
Yeah.
And the bell and hot peppers I think was on the list, but I may have blocked that out because even non-organic bell peppers are really expensive.
Yeah.
Organic bell peppers are ridiculously expensive.
Yes, it's crazy.
So these are foods that you want to try and avoid. And if you can't avoid buying the non-organic version, they must be washed well.
Yes.
Yes.
And just to put this in a little bit of context, some highlights from the testing. More than 90% of samples of strawberries, apples, cherries, spinach, nectarines, and grapes tested positive for residues of 2 or more pesticides.
Wow.
There were a total of 210 pesticides found on Dirty Dozen items. Mm-hmm. Of those, over 50 different pesticides were detected on every type of crop on the list except cherries.
Wow.
All of the produce on the Dirty Dozen list has at least one sample with at least 13 different pesticides, and some had as many as 23.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Kale,
collard, and mustard greens, as well as hot peppers and bell peppers, had the most pesticides detected of any crop, with there being 103 total pesticides on the greens and 101 on the hot and bell peppers.
Yeah, that's sad.
It is.
Really sad.
Yes.
So try and buy organic if you can off the Dirty Dozen list. And if you can't, like I said, just wash them really, really well. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can do. And
here's one last thing to know, and this is perhaps why green beans made it to the list this year, is that the neurotoxic organophosphate insecticide acephate, which was prohibited from use on green beans in 2011, was detected on 6% of the green bean samples.
So are they using it illegally, or were those limitations rolled back?
I do not know.
It doesn't say.
It does not say.
Yeah.
But we know that there, at the very least, is some kind of residual. I don't know if it's residual toxin from the soil.
Yeah, it could be.
Or if the pesticides are being used illegally. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there is that possibility.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have the oh so wonderful Clean 15.
Right. Now, these are vegetables that you can buy non-organic. Of course, still wash them well.
Absolutely.
But you can rest assured that they don't have as many pesticides involved in their production.
Yes. And this list makes me happy because so many of the things that we eat on a day-to-day basis are actually found on this list. And most of my favorite fruits are also on this list. So we start again from the bottom.
Okay.
Number 15, we have carrots, which we use a lot of. At 14, watermelon, everyone's favorite summer fruit. Number 13, sweet potatoes. Number 12, my favorite fruit, mango.
Everybody loves the mango.
Mm-hmm. Number 11, mushrooms. Number 10, the oh-so-versatile and completely underutilized cabbage.
Yeah.
I love cabbage.
We eat a lot of cabbage in the summer.
Yeah. A lot of slaw.
Yeah.
Yep. But
we do need to up our cabbage use in the winter because cabbage it's a fall crop.
It is a fall crop, and it's just so great for soups.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome for soups.
I never think to use it.
Well,
for soups.
I'm going to start reminding you because I do love cabbage.
Okay.
All right. Number 9, we've got kiwi.
I'm not a fan.
I like kiwi. We don't have kiwi very often, but I do like it. When I have the opportunity to have it, I definitely go for it. Number 8, honeydew melon. Number 7, one of my favorites, asparagus. Number 6, sweet peas, but specifically frozen sweet peas.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that designation has been made. You know, did non-frozen sweet peas not fall into the clean category? Are they hanging out in the no man's land between the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen?
Well, it could be because frozen vegetables, they're like flash frozen. They pick them, they freeze them right away.
Yes.
So maybe they use certain pesticides to prevent pests from eating them after they've been picked. I don't know.
That could be. I don't know. But still, frozen sweet peas are on the list. Number 5, papaya. Number 4, probably the single most ubiquitous ingredient that Christine cooks with, onions.
Onions.
I think that might be like a staple in just about everything.
Look at any recipe. Almost every savory recipe has onions in it.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Start with saute onions and garlic.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Number 3, another of my favorite fruits, pineapple. At number 2, we one of my late summer, early fall favorites, sweet corn. Mm-hmm. Gotta love sweet corn. And number 1, see, again, it's the world's perfect food. The avocado.
The avocado.
I love avocado.
Me too.
And knowing that it's at the top of the Clean 15 makes it even better.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to know. And most of your fruits where you don't eat the skin are safer than...
Sure. And that's what we're looking at when we're talking about watermelon and mangoes and pineapple. Like, yeah, you don't generally eat the skin of those fruits.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that they would be automatically cleaner choices than berries, which of course are going to absorb everything through their incredibly thin skins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, another bit of context for you in this is that almost 65% of Clean 15 fruit and vegetable samples had no detectable pesticide residues.
That's amazing.
Love that.
Yeah.
Avocados and sweet corn were the cleanest produce. Less than 2% of samples showed any detectable pesticides. Just over 10% of Clean 15 fruit and vegetable samples had residues of 2 or more pesticides, compared to, what was it? It was like 90%, of the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. And no sample from the first 6 Clean 15 items, so those are avocado, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papaya, and frozen sweet peas, had tested positive for more than 3 pesticides.
That's great.
Yes. So there's a drastic difference
Yeah.
between the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah. I think the worst thing on that Dirty Dozen list are the greens, you know?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It is a shame because I do love me some kale and I do love me some spinach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know we had talked about the Dirty Dozen in a previous episode, and this was an update, so I thought I would pass that on. So I thought we'd pass it on to everybody.
And we now have.
Yes.
Or now we have. I don't know which way I meant for that to come out, but okay.
Want to move on to our main topic?
Let's do it. Main
All right.
topic.
Our main topic this week is, are vegan restaurants closing at a disproportionate rate compared to other eateries? It seems like every time I look at Google News or Veg News or anything like that, they're talking about another vegan restaurant closing. Or people are saying, oh, this restaurant's closing and that restaurant's closing. So what I was interested to find out was, are vegan restaurants just being kind of targeted because it makes more news? It's more newsworthy when vegan restaurants go out of business than regular, omnivorous restaurants. It seems like I'm always hearing about. Maybe it's just because I have my ear to the ground concerning vegan restaurants.
Well, it could be, but since you put me onto this topic, I did a little bit of reading, and I feel like the fact that the closing of vegan restaurants, and specifically a couple of the articles you sent my way mentioned Miami Burger in the UK, which closed last month, but that, really kind of visibly announcing these closures are turning a lens on progressive ideas in a way. I think it's a way of putting it out there that veganism is not as successful or as popular or as prevalent or is as much of a movement as it actually is.
Yeah. That's the feeling I was getting, that the media is actually trying to, like you said, shine a lens onto vegan businesses in a negative light, you know?
Yes. I think that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
If you look at all kinds of things that are happening in the world these days, you've got horrific stories coming out of schools, particularly in the United States South, things that can't be talked about, things that are going to soon be illegal, books that are being banned, all of these kinds of things. I think this is perhaps another kind of mechanism of the establishment to keep people from thinking that, maybe veganism is a good choice. I think maybe the vegan industries have become large enough and are now enough of a market share that they're scared.
That there's a target on their backs.
Yes.
Yeah.
That the establishment is now targeting vegan restaurants and organizations, or making sure people know when these places close.
Yeah.
Because, if you live anywhere where there are restaurants, I remember the, brief period of 4 years that I lived in New York. Restaurant closings are not uncommon.
No.
Restaurants come and go like crazy.
Right. With COVID, a lot of restaurants were closing. A lot of businesses in general were closing because of lack of staff or lack of customers. It wasn't just vegan restaurants.
Right.
And then that brought me to this Veg News article that said more vegan restaurants opened than closed during COVID-19, according to Happy Cow.
Yeah. And also another Veg News article debunked. It's the tabloids that are claiming vegan restaurants are struggling to survive.
Yeah.
It's not even the major news outlets. It's the tabloids. It's the scandal sheets. It's those kinds of guys that are perhaps targeting these organizations. To make it very clear, there's not a study that's been done to say that more vegan restaurants are closing than non-vegan restaurants.
Right.
I mean, and right on the surface, you would have to say that's probably untrue because there are very simply more non-vegan restaurants than there are vegan restaurants.
Yeah.
So even if you wanted to break it down by a percentage of non-vegan restaurants closing and a percentage of vegan restaurants closing, there's still no comparison just because of the numerical differences to begin with.
Right. So many, many more non-vegan restaurants closed, I'm sure, over the last few years.
Certainly.
Than vegan restaurants. But then why do big publications like Times and the New York Post and New York Times insist on highlighting vegan restaurants that are closing?
I don't know.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, but again, I think it's the meat and dairy industry's being afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really do. Trying to get people to believe that, maybe this whole veganism thing, it's just a fad. It's coming and going, and let's not get too far into it because it's not going to be a thing for that long.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the compact disc. It's going to come and go.
Right.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it either.
I just don't buy it.
Yeah, that Veg News article about the Happy Cow statement, they said that 413 vegan venues closed since the onset of the pandemic. 517 new vegan restaurants have opened.
And there you go.
So, and I'm sure that if you took all restaurants, those numbers would be comparable.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to consider also, as you said, with the pandemic, the times that we're living in. The entire world is in a state of incredible economic uncertainty right now. And so I would imagine that lots of restaurants are closing simply because people are having to tighten their belts and not go out as much as they used to because they just can't afford it because inflation has been such a problem in the past couple of years. That a restaurant is vegan, I guarantee you that is not the sole reason for a restaurant closure.
No.
And some places might not be just closing, they might be moving.
Right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that go into this.
Yeah, and I think really what we really should be looking at are why are small business owners closing their doors? Because that's most restaurants are family run or small business, right? They're not huge chains that are all over the country. And so many small businesses are closing or have closed throughout the pandemic. A lot of it is just stress, like working 18, 20-hour days trying to keep a business afloat is not a fun way to live.
I wouldn't imagine, no.
I mean, what's started for most people, I'm sure, as something that they loved to do throughout the pandemic, it became just a struggle every day. Struggle.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, and trying to keep a business alive that you actually can't have open.
Yeah.
So I do. I think they're just, it's...
Well, like, for instance, this one French vegan restaurant that closed, this was a Michelin star winning restaurant that you had to book months in advance.
Okay.
And they closed.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the amount of money that they were making or not making. It was completely about the amount of stress and work that it was taking to maintain the business.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that likely would have been true whether the restaurant was vegan or not.
Right. Yeah. It has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the restaurant was vegan.
That's right.
So, yeah. So knock it off, big media, Just
knock it off, tabloids.
Just knock it off. It's not just tabloids. It's, it's major news sites. Time, like I said, was posting articles about vegan restaurants closing. It's like, why, Time? Slow news day or,
Follow the money.
Yeah.
That's all I would say.
Yeah. You're probably right.
Look at the board of directors of Time magazine.
Yeah, or who are their major
supporters or advertisers or absolutely.
Yeah.
Just follow the money.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is. I completely agree.
Yeah, I just so many people were talking about restaurants closing, and I'm like, I want to look into this. Are vegan restaurants closing disproportionately? Because that would be strange.
No, I think the answer is no.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right that the answer is no. After reading a bunch of articles and looking into it further, it's like, no, restaurants are closing.
Sure,
businesses are closing. Small businesses are really struggling, and have been struggling. Well, small businesses always struggle a little,
of course.
Let's be honest. But during the pandemic, it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that made it through, I think a lot of them, they have, they're shell shocked.
For sure. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah. So, like take Herbivore Clothing, for instance.
Yeah. Bummer that.
They just got tired of the fight. It was just a fight.
Grind, yeah.
A fight every day to try and make payroll, to try and make rent for your space, and that is just so wearing, Yeah. I know I've been involved in a small business like that, and it is not fun.
Right.
To do day in and day out. And nobody works harder than a small business owner. You're working all the time.
It's true.
It's
true.
Yeah. So support your local vegan restaurant.
Absolutely. If we had one, we'd be supporting them.
We'd be there every day, probably. There'd be no more talking about recipes. It would be all about where we ate.
That's right. And it would be the same place every day.
Yeah. But support the smaller local businesses around you, because these people are working their butts off, and it's a daily struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the overall restaurant thing, I am happy to report that, again, according to Plant-Based News, that vegan options are now served at nearly half of all United States restaurants.
Really? I would think that it would be even higher than half.
I mean, that's a nice thing to think, but apparently there is data out there that confirms that vegan options are now served at nearly half of all U.S. restaurants. In fact, 48.4%.
That's awesome.
Hey, it's a start. And that is actually a growth of 33% since 2018. So that's saying something right there.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah, that is.
Wow.
So there we go. Just thought I'd toss that in there.
Well,
little segue.
Thank you for that little positive spin at the end.
Anytime. My pleasure. That's my job. You get a little dark and gloomy.
I can get dark and gloomy.
It's true.
Have we said all we need to say about vegan restaurants closing?
I think we have.
I think we have too.
Yeah.
Do you have one of your 72 reasons to be vegan today? Reasons to be vegan.
This might be my favorite, actually, of the 72 reasons to be vegan.
Oh.
Okay. This is reason number 64. Again, if you're curious, this reason to be vegan is brought to you by 72 Reasons to be Vegan. Why Plant-Based, Why Now? By Jean Stone and Kathy Freston. This is reason number 64. It's basic. Do unto others. If you wouldn't want to be shot up with chemicals and growth hormones from the second you were born, forced to spend your entire brief life in filth where you could hardly breathe, become so fat and in so much pain that you could barely move, heaved to slaughter amid the terrified sounds of peers, all before you were barely an adolescent, and finally lie dead on someone's dinner plate, picked over by some distracted person who takes a few bites of your seasoned flesh before scraping the rest into the trash can because he's not in the mood for your flavor after all, well, then you might not want to eat meat, dairy, or eggs.
That's a good one.
It's a great one. It's a perfect one.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, if you only needed one reason to be vegan, that would
kind of be it. Yeah.
That would be the one.
Yeah, it really, really would. And of course, it then goes on to go even a little deeper into that whole concept. But I really do love the next statement, which is why? Because karma just might be a thing. And what you put out into the world eventually comes back around to you. It's a very simple idea. Treat others, humans and animals, as you would like to be treated.
I definitely think karma is a thing.
Oh, I do too. No question.
Yep. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for allowing me a moment for that.
Speaking of allowing you a moment, would you like to talk about our next segment, which is your favorite segment?
Is this a listener shout out?
It's time for our listener shout out.
Ooh, I love the listener shout out.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
And I particularly love this listener shout out. Oh, this is so exciting. Our listener shout out this week is to Natina Watford, owner and chef at Buffalo V-Spot, hardworking corrections officer, loving mother, creator of some of the best vegan comfort food in the region, and of course, a dedicated Buffalo Bills fan. We were fortunate enough to see Natina last weekend at the Vegan Center when we stopped by for her amazing vegan breakfast subs. And we just think she's awesome, and we want her to know that.
You are awesome, Natina. We love your food and your smiling face that comes along with it.
Oh my gosh, that gorgeous smile. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Natina, reach out to us, email us, or DM us your t-shirt size and your address so we can send you a swag bag.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. And keep up the good work, because, man, you're amazing.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about Natina's food is my pants.
Well, that's not Natina's food. That's your pants.
That's the fact that I can't stop eating it.
Well, no, that just means that we're very lucky that Natina does not have a restaurant very close to us.
Right.
Because then that would be the restaurant we were eating at every day, and then your pants would be having even more problems.
I would need new pants.
You would need new pants.
Yeah.
Yes.
So no.
As it stands, you can still fit in your regular pants.
I can still fit in my pants. I can. But for some reason, my pants get smaller every now and again. And with that, we'll move on to our housekeeping section.
I'm sure you don't want to know any more about Christine's pants.
We're still holding our Food Not Bombs fundraiser at our Buy Me a Coffee. That's buymeacoffee.com/cucumbers. And we're raising funds for the Buffalo chapter of Food Not Bombs. Food Not Bombs is a wonderful organization that provides vegan meals to vegans who have food insecurities. So please donate if you can.
Absolutely. Also, we want to hear from you. So email or DM us show ideas, cookbook recommendations, recipes you love, or subjects that you'd like us to touch on in future episodes.
Yeah. And subscribe to our YouTube.
Enough said.
No. Hey, subscribe to our YouTube. And here's something really cool. YouTube just rolled out a podcast feature. So if you don't like to listen to podcasts like on your smartphone, or you don't like to reach out to a podcast app, if YouTube's your jam, YouTube now has a podcast feature. You can go to our YouTube page and just click on either the podcast tab or the playlist tab, and you can play all of our podcasts through on a little like podcast player right from YouTube, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And I'll be, this week, I think I'm going to have up our next
unboxing.
Yeah. Our next Vegan Cuts snack box unboxing. So look for that.
Yeah, there you go. If you like, you can also join our Patreon. We will be adding some of our recipes for our patrons along with some fun behind the scenes videos. The link is always in the show notes if you would like to join the community there.
Yeah, last week's recipe is up there. If you want to become a patron and get the recipe, that would be cool. Hey, leave us a review on your podcast app if it allows. Some podcast apps like Apple Podcast allow you to not only rate, but you can write a review, which is great. That helps us become more visible. And when you rate on a podcast app, there's tons of different podcast apps, and most of them will allow you to rate a podcast. They usually have a little thing where you can click on a shape, and the shape is usually star-like. If you see something like that, Sam's laughing. She can't take it. If you see something like that, click as many of those things as you can, which is generally 5.
How many weeks is this going to go on?
Probably not many more. I'm running out.
You're running out of ideas.
Yeah.
Let's see. You can also share the show and our social media with a friend or family member that you think would enjoy what we do. It's the easiest way to support us or any content creator, and it costs you nothing at all.
And last but not least, of course, join the AFA Vegan Voter Hub. The AFA is the Agriculture Fairness Alliance, and they are in Washington right now lobbying on our behalf. So join the Vegan Voter Hub so that they know that you're out there and so your voice can be heard. And if you can, give to them monetarily and become a member of the AFA.
Hey, you know what?
What's that?
I think that wraps things up.
That does wrap things up.
Cool.
Hey, I guess that's it. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
The end.
Do you want to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast? Well, you can do that by joining our Patreon page. We have 3 different levels of support, and all 3 come with their own special bonuses. Hey, you can support the podcast and get yourself some really cool merch. All the links and deets are in the show notes. We'll catch you next week on the next episode of Compassion and Cucumbers.